full audiobook of 10 chapters. Please like and subscribe my channel. If you learn something new in this video, let's begin from introduction. Stop caring what people think, because the moment you chase approval, you lose control of your life. Every opinion that shapes you weakens you. Every judgment that distracts you delays your growth. This audiobook is not about arrogance, it's about freedom. Freedom from needing to be liked. Freedom from performing for applause. Freedom from fear of judgment. Today you will unlearn the habit of seeking validation and rebuild your confidence from the inside out. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The addiction to approval. You've been trained to chase approval, not by accident, by design. From the moment you were a child, you were rewarded for compliance. Smile for the camera. Say thank you. Sit quietly. Be liked. That's how the addiction begins. You learned early that approval equals safety, that applause equals worth, that being accepted means you're enough. But here's the truth. The need to be liked is the fastest way to lose control of your life. Every time you look for permission, you hand over your power. Every time you wait for validation, you delay your destiny. Every time you change yourself to fit someone's expectations, you betray who you really are. That's not kindness. That's dependency. That's not humility. That's weakness disguised as virtue, and it's killing your growth. The root of the addiction, you see, this addiction to approval doesn't come from evil intentions. It comes from fear, the fear of being rejected, the fear of being misunderstood, the fear of standing alone. But here's the truth, rejection won't destroy you, it will define you. Because every strong person you admire, every name that outlasted their generation, was once rejected. They didn't wait to be liked. They moved anyway. They spoke anyway. They built anyway. That's the difference between the average and the unstoppable. The average seeks permission. The unstoppable takes action. You have a choice. Keep feeding the addiction, or break it. And breaking it starts with awareness. The dopamine trap. Let's talk about the real chemistry of this addiction. Every like, every compliment, every ounce of praise gives you a small hit of dopamine. It feels good, it's instant, it's easy. But like any drug, the more you consume, the less it satisfies. You need more. You need constant reassurance, constant praise, constant feedback. You become dependent on external energy to feel alive. That's the trap. You stop creating for purpose. You start performing for applause. You stop being real. You start being liked. And the more you seek it, the emptier you become. Validation doesn't fill you. It drains you. The approval loop. Here's how the loop works. You act, you wait, you adjust, you repeat, you post something, and you wait to see how people react. You speak your mind, and you wait to see if people agree. You dress a certain way, talk a certain way, live a certain way, all to avoid disapproval. That's not freedom. That's a mental cage. You are living someone else's life, hoping they'll clap for you while you lose yourself. Stop waiting. Stop asking, stop performing, start living. You don't need their permission to be who you are. You don't need their applause to validate your progress. You don't need their approval to move forward. The price you pay. Every addiction has a cost. And the cost of approval is your authenticity. It's your peace, it's your potential. You can't create your best work while trying to please everyone. You can't live your truth while constantly adjusting for approval. And you can't find yourself while hiding behind other people's opinions. The more you chase their acceptance, the less you recognize your own reflection. That's the real tragedy. You start to forget what you believe. You forget what you love. You forget what you stand for. Why? Because you've been too busy fitting in. Too busy blending in. Too busy making sure everyone's comfortable, except you. Here's the hard truth. The world doesn't reward approval seekers. It rewards those who move with conviction. The illusion of rejection. You think people are watching you. You think they're judging you. But most aren't even paying attention. They're too busy worrying about what you think of them. That's the illusion. You live your life in fear of opinions that barely exist. You hesitate for ghosts. You hold back for shadows. The truth, no one cares as much as you think, and that's freedom. Once you realize that, you stop performing, you start breathing, you start acting with intention, not for attention. The shift from approval to alignment. So how do you break the addiction? You shift your focus. From approval to alignment. Ask yourself, am I doing this because it's right or because I want to be liked? Am I saying this because it's true or because it sounds good? Am I moving toward my purpose or toward someone else's praise? That's the discipline. Alignment over approval. Integrity over applause. Purpose over popularity. You have a choice. Choose alignment every time. The real reward. Here's what happens when you stop chasing approval. You gain peace, you gain power, you gain respect. Real respect. Because people trust those who don't need to be liked. They sense strength in your stillness. They sense freedom in your silence. They sense certainty in your decisions. You stop being influenced by noise. You start being guided by purpose. That's the transformation this audiobook promises. Quiet confidence, unshakable focus, emotional independence. That's the real reward. Behavioral instructions, what to do. Now, here's what you do. Notice the urge. Every time you want to be liked, pause, ask, who am I doing this for? If it's not for your future self, stop. Act anyway. Say the thing, do the thing, move forward without waiting for permission. That's how you rewire your brain. That's how you build strength. That's how you take back control. You don't overcome the addiction by fighting it. You overcome it by starving it. You stop feeding it your attention. You stop seeking the high, that's the key. Final reinforcement. Remember this line. Let it echo. If you live for their approval, you'll die from their rejection. Don't let temporary opinions decide your permanent identity. Don't let applause define your worth. Don't let silence make you doubt your value. The approval of others isn't the goal, it's the distraction. You are not here to please the crowd. You are here to master yourself. That's the difference between dependence and discipline. Dependence needs reaction. Discipline moves in silence. You've seen the addiction, you've felt its grip, and now you've started to break it. You no longer need their permission to act. You've reclaimed your power to choose. But there's more. Because once you stop performing, you must learn to live for real. Chapter 2. Stop performing, start living. You've spent most of your life performing. Smiling when you don't mean it. Agreeing when you don't believe it. Pretending to be okay when you're falling apart. You perform because you think it's safer. You perform because it's what the world rewards. You perform because being real feels too risky. But let me tell you the truth. Performance is a cage. It might get you applause, but it will never give you peace. It might make you visible, but it will never make you fulfilled. You're not here to perform. You're here to live. The mask. You built from childhood. You were taught to wear a mask. Be polite. Be likable. Be impressive. Don't upset anyone. Don't fail publicly. Don't be too different. So you built an identity based on other people's comfort. You became whoever they needed you to be. And somewhere along the way you lost who you actually are. You don't even realize how much of your life is performance. You perform at work to appear confident. You perform online to appear happy. You perform in relationships to appear perfect. That's not authenticity. That's exhaustion. And here's the painful truth. Performance will always lead to burnout, because pretending takes energy that truth doesn't. You're tired not because you're weak, but because you're fake. You've been acting for too long. You have a choice. Keep performing or start living. That's the key. The spotlight illusion. You think everyone's watching you. You think people are analyzing your every move, waiting to criticize, waiting to gossip. That's the illusion. No one's really watching. They're all too busy performing themselves. The spotlight you think is on you doesn't exist. You've built your life around imaginary judgment. You've stopped chasing what fulfills you and started chasing what looks good. And the result? You look successful but feel empty. Let that sink in. You've become good at looking happy instead of being happy. That's not life. That's theater. Stop rehearsing. Stop editing. Stop managing perception. You don't need to be flawless. You need to be real. When you stop performing, you stop fearing mistakes. When you stop fearing mistakes, you start taking risks. And when you start taking risks, you finally start living. That's the shift. That's the transformation. The cost of the show. Every performance has a cost. And the cost of your constant performance is authenticity. You're never relaxed because you're never real. You're never fulfilled because you're always filtered. You're never happy because you're too busy maintaining an image. Think about it. You spend your life editing yourself for people who won't even remember your name. You spend your energy on approval that never lasts. You wear masks so long you start mistaking them for your face. That's not living. That's survival. And survival isn't freedom. You have to stop performing for applause and start moving for purpose. Because the applause dies. The purpose doesn't. You don't need their permission to live without pretending. You don't need their validation to be real. You just need courage and repetition. Every day remind yourself, I'm not here to impress. I'm here to express. That's the key. From image to impact, you've been obsessed with image. How you look. How you sound. How you're perceived. But image doesn't change the world. Impact does. Image is shallow. Impact is deep. Image fades. Impact echoes. Image demands perfection. Impact demands purpose. When you live for image, you chase applause. When you live for impact, you chase growth. That's the difference between fake confidence and quiet power. Here's the truth. People remember impact, not image. They remember how you made them feel, not how you made yourself look. Stop trying to appear strong. Start becoming strong. It's not about image. It's about integrity. It's not about applause. It's about alignment. That's the transformation. The fear of being seen. You perform because you're scared of being seen for real. You're scared that if you stop pretending, people will walk away. And maybe they will. But the right people won't. You have to risk rejection to find truth. You have to risk being misunderstood to live authentically. You have to accept that being real means not everyone will stay. And that's okay. Because here's what happens when you stop performing. The wrong people leave. The right people stay, and you finally find yourself. You don't lose by being real. You lose by pretending forever. You don't weaken by dropping the mask. You strengthen by breathing without it. You have a choice, fear or freedom. Choose freedom. Always freedom. Behavioral instructions. What to do, here's how you stop performing and start living. Catch yourself performing. Notice when you're about to say what sounds good instead of what's true. That's your trigger. That's the mask. 2. Pause before you please. Before you say yes, before you smile to fit in, before you adjust your tone, ask yourself, am I doing this from truth or fear? Tell the truth anyway. Say what you mean. Do what you feel called to do. Let people react. You'll survive, you'll grow, you'll get stronger every time. This is how you rebuild authenticity, not by thinking, but by doing, by taking small daily risks that prove you can be real and still stand tall. You don't overcome performance by pretending less. You overcome it by living more. That's the work. That's the discipline. The reward of real living. Once you stop performing, something amazing happens. Life gets lighter. You start feeling peace you didn't know existed. You stop worrying about perception and start focusing on progress. You stop living in reaction and start living in purpose. You become quieter, more grounded, more focused. You don't chase the next compliment. You chase the next challenge. You don't need noise. You need alignment. That's what real living feels like. It's not loud, it's not perfect, it's not glamorous, but it's real. And real lasts reinforcement. The core message. So repeat after me. I'm done performing. I'm done pretending. I'm done pleasing. I'm here to live. I'm here to grow. I'm here to be free. You don't need their permission. You don't need their approval. You just need the courage to show up as yourself. Raw, honest, unfiltered. The crowd doesn't matter anymore. The truth does. And that's what separates the actor from the leader. You have a choice. Keep performing or start living. Choose life. Choose authenticity. Choose freedom. That's the key. You've stopped performing. You've begun to live with truth instead of fear. You've peeled back the mask, and for the first time, you can breathe again. But here's the next challenge. Once you start living authentically, you'll still face judgment, and that judgment can control you, if you let it. Chapter 3. The fear of judgment is the real prison. You're not trapped by other people's opinions. You're trapped by your fear of them. That's the real prison, not the judgment itself, the fear of it. You think they're watching you. You think they're talking about you. You think they're laughing at you. But they're not. They're too busy fearing judgment themselves. This is the secret. Almost everyone is performing for an audience that doesn't exist, and the few who aren't, the ones who move in silence, who act without apology, they're the ones you call powerful. That's not an accident. That's freedom. You have a choice. You can live in their approval, or you can live in your truth, but you can't do both. The invisible prison fear of judgment is invisible, but it's everywhere. It controls what you wear, what you say, what you create, even who you become. It's a silent hand that shapes your life without you noticing. You hold back your opinions to avoid conflict. You avoid opportunities to avoid embarrassment. You hide your dreams to avoid criticism. You shrink yourself to stay comfortable. That's not humility. That's imprisonment. The walls aren't made of concrete. They're made of opinions. The guards aren't real, they're imagined. And every time you let judgment dictate your move, you tighten your own chains. You have to see it for what it is, a mental trap built by fear. A system that rewards silence and punishes authenticity. You don't need their permission to escape. You just need courage. That's the key. The illusion of they. Let's destroy a myth. They will judge me. Who are they? Who exactly are you afraid of? The co-workers who gossip because they're insecure. The relatives who never chase their own dreams. The strangers who'll scroll past your life in 3 seconds. You're giving power to ghosts. You've built a cage around yourself to protect against people who don't even think about you. That's insanity. That's waste. The truth is, people forget fast. They'll talk for a day, maybe a week, and then move on. But you'll remember forever. You'll carry the weight of their imagined disapproval for years. Stop it, you're fighting shadows. You're protecting yourself from storms that never come. You don't need their acceptance. You need your action. That's the real freedom. The high cost of fear. Let's talk about the price you pay for fearing judgment. You lose time, because hesitation kills opportunity. You lose peace, because your mind is always spinning, wondering what others think. You lose authenticity, because you filter every move to avoid rejection. You think judgment will hurt you, but the truth is, fear of judgment hurts more. It paralyzes your progress. It steals your voice. It turns potential into regret. And here's the irony. The people you fear are the same ones doing nothing. They're not ahead of you. They're not living bolder lives. They're just louder about their opinions. Why would you let the noise of the insecure define the direction of the courageous? You wouldn't, not if you saw it clearly. You have to stop overvaluing opinions and undervaluing your own mission. That's the shift. That's the freedom you're after. What judgment really is. Here's the truth about judgment. It's projection. People judge what they don't understand. They criticize what they envy. They mock what they secretly wish they had the courage to do. Their judgment is not truth. It's confession. Every insult reveals more about them than about you. That's the rule. When they call you selfish for focusing on your goals, it's because they've never focused on theirs. When they call you arrogant for standing tall, it's because they've been bowing too long. When they say you've changed, what they really mean is you've grown and I haven't. So stop taking it personally. It's not about you. It's about their reflection. Your job is not to convince them. Your job is to keep walking. That's discipline. That's control. That's strength. Real-world practice, exposure to discomfort. So how do you break this fear? You face it. Not once, not twice, every day. You expose yourself to judgment until it loses its power. That's the only way. Here's how. Say what you mean, out loud. Even if your voice shakes, post your truths and without waiting for approval. Let people react. Let them misunderstand. Take small public risks. Speak up in meetings. Share your ideas. Walk differently. Dress for yourself. At first it will burn. It will sting. You'll feel exposed. That's good. That's growth. Because every time you survive judgment, you realize it can't kill you. Every time you act despite fear, the fear weakens. Every time you stop explaining yourself, your confidence strengthens. You train your brain through exposure. You rebuild your mind through repetition. You have a choice, fear or freedom. And every brave action, no matter how small, moves you closer to freedom. That's the key. The shift. From fear to focus. When you stop fearing judgment, something powerful happens, your focus returns. You stop wasting energy trying to be liked. You start investing energy into becoming effective. You stop worrying about being understood. You start caring about being disciplined. You stop performing for applause. You start producing results. It's not about being fearless. It's about being focused. It's not about pleasing them. It's about progressing you. Once you realize that, you start living on your own terms. You become quieter, stronger, harder to read, harder to break. Because now, your validation comes from action, not attention. That's when judgment loses its grip, the reward of courage. When you master your fear of judgment, you unlock peace. Because you're no longer living for them, you're living for purpose. You're no longer trying to be liked, you're trying to be effective. And effectiveness doesn't need an audience. It just needs discipline. You walk differently, you speak slower, you act decisively, you don't explain, you execute, you don't argue, you achieve, you don't react, you rise. That's real confidence, not loud, not defensive, not performative. Just solid, grounded, free. Freedom isn't a feeling, it's a choice. You either choose their comfort or your calling. You either choose to please or to progress. You have a choice. That's the difference between living trapped and living true. Final reinforcement. Let this truth settle deep. Fear of judgment is the real prison, and the key is already in your hand. You don't need to convince them. You don't need to prove anything. You just need to walk forward, eyes clear, voice steady, purpose intact. They'll talk. Let them, they'll doubt. Let them, they'll laugh. Let them. While they talk, you'll move. While they doubt, you'll grow. While they laugh, you'll build. In time, the same people who judged you will wish they had your courage. That's how this always ends. You have a choice. Stay in the prison or walk out. The door's been open the whole time. That's the key. You've faced the truth. The fear of judgment is the real prison. You've learned that freedom doesn't come from silence. It comes from courage. But courage alone isn't enough. You need control, emotional control. Because even when you stop fearing judgment, emotions can still sabotage you. You mastered your fear. Chapter 4. Detach from opinion. Yours and theirs, you think your biggest problem is other people's opinions. It's not. It's your attachment to opinions, theirs and your own. You listen too much. You react too fast. You believe every thought that passes through your mind. That's why you're stuck. That's why you can't move forward. You're chained, not by reality, but by perception. And that's the silent killer of progress. You have a choice, detach or stay controlled. That's the key. The trap of external opinion. Let's start with the obvious one. Their opinion, the crowd, the noise, the judgment. Everyone has something to say. They'll tell you what you should do, how you should live, what success should look like. They speak from fear, from bias, from insecurity, and if you're not careful, you start mistaking their noise for truth. That's how people lose their path. They start living by committee. They chase validation instead of vision. They ask for permission to be themselves. You don't need their permission. You don't need their applause. You don't need their understanding. You need focus. You need discipline. You need direction. Every time you chase approval, you abandon purpose. Every time you react to criticism, you surrender control. You cannot lead your life if you're following opinions. You cannot evolve if you're begging to be understood. That's the rule. Detach from the noise. Detach from the narrative. You have a choice, that's the key. The more dangerous trap. Your own opinion. But here's the deeper truth. It's not just their opinions that limit you. It's yours. You think your opinion is truth. You think your mood defines reality. You think your fear is a fact. It's not. Your mind lies to you. It tells you you're not ready. It tells you you're not enough. It tells you it's too late, too risky, too hard. But your mind isn't the master. It's the servant. And right now you've let it run wild. Detach from your own opinions. They are not sacred, they are not stable. They shift with emotion, with exhaustion, with fear. If you let your opinion control your behavior, you'll stay inconsistent, reactive, weak. Some days you'll feel confident and unstoppable. Other days you'll feel useless and invisible. If your discipline depends on that, you'll fail, because it's not about how you feel, it's about what you do. That's the key. You don't need to believe in yourself to begin. You need to begin to believe in yourself. Action creates belief, not the other way around. That's discipline, that's control. Detach from your opinion of yourself and do the work anyway. Opinions are weather, not climate. Here's how to understand opinions. They're like weather. They change, they shift, they pass. One day it rains. You don't curse the sky forever. You just adapt, you move, you keep going. That's how you handle opinions, both theirs and yours. Your emotions are temporary. Your mission is permanent. The world's opinions are temporary. Your standards must be permanent. You have to become immune to fluctuation. You have to stay steady when everyone else wobbles, because consistency wins over confidence. Every time. It's not about feeling right. It's about doing right. It's not about comfort. It's about control. Detach from the storms. Stay focused on the horizon. That's how you win. How to practice. Detachment is not indifference. It's power. It's the ability to observe without being owned. You don't suppress emotions. You don't ignore opinions. You just don't obey them. Here's how you practice. Observe before reacting. When someone criticizes you, don't defend. Don't explain. Pause. Breathe. Ask, is this truth or just noise? 90% of the time, it's noise. Move on. Question your thoughts. When your mind says, I can't do this, ask, who decided that? You'll realize, it's not you. It's old programming, old fear, old memory. Detach. Choose the present. Stop labeling everything. Not every day needs to be good or bad. Some days just are. You show up, you execute, you grow. That's enough. Build a no-response muscle. Every time you don't react, you gain strength. Every time you choose silence over defense, you gain power. Every time you detach from opinions, you gain clarity. You're not here to win arguments, you're here to win your life. That's the discipline, that's the mission. Detach from praise too. Everyone talks about ignoring criticism. Few talk about ignoring praise. But praise is just as dangerous. Because the moment you start needing applause, you start performing again. And when the applause stops, you crumble. Detach from both sides. Don't get high on compliments. Don't get low on criticism. Stay centered. Stay grounded. You don't need to be liked. You need to be effective. That's the mindset of leaders. That's the difference between amateurs and professionals. Amateurs need to feel good to act. Professionals act, and that's what makes them feel good. You have a choice, attached to validation or attached to vision, but you can't have both. That's the key, the power of emotional neutrality. Neutrality doesn't mean emotionless. It means emotion under command. When you detach from opinions, you create space. Space to think, to act, to lead. That's what emotional mastery looks like. You stop being reactive. You start being responsive. You stop needing control. You start embodying control. That's real strength, not loud, not aggressive, but calm, unshakable. When you stop being moved by every opinion, every mood, every voice, you become immovable. And immovable people move the world. That's the paradox. That's the truth. Reinforcement, discipline over opinion. Listen carefully. Your life will not change when you silence the critics. It will change when you silence your reactions. You can't stop opinions. They'll always exist. But you can stop giving them authority. It's not about control over the world. It's about control over your response. It's not about avoiding noise. It's about staying calm within it. It's not about perfection. It's about power. The power to choose how you show up. You have a choice. Stay reactive or become relentless. Chase approval or build discipline. That's the key. Detach from opinion. Return to purpose. Detach from noise. return to clarity. Because in the end, no opinion, not theirs, not even yours, defines your destiny. Your discipline does, your consistency does, your execution does. That's how you win, that's how you lead, that's how you stay free. You've learned to detach from the world's opinions and from your own. You've learned to silence the noise and master your emotional control. That's power, but there's another enemy waiting, one that doesn't just distract you, it drains you. You've conquered fear, you've conquered opinion. Now it's time to conquer energy. Because focus dies when energy is wasted, and most people lose their future one distraction at a time. Chapter 5. The silent cost of seeking validation. You don't realize what it's costing you. Every time you chase validation, every time you wait for permission, every time you need to be seen, liked, or praised, you pay a silent tax. Not in money. In time, in peace, in power. You don't see the bill right away, but it's there, quietly subtracting your confidence, your focus, your potential. That's the silent cost of seeking validation, and it's one of the biggest reasons people never become who they're meant to be. You have a choice, validation or freedom. That's the key. The hidden addiction, let's call it what it is. Validation is an addiction, and like every addiction, it starts small. You post something, someone likes it, you feel good. That tiny hit of approval, that dopamine, becomes your drug. You start craving it again. You tell yourself it's harmless, but over time you stop creating for purpose and start performing for approval. You start checking how many people agree before you take action. You start waiting for the world to nod before you move. And just like that, you've lost control. You don't move because you believe. You move because you want to be believed in. You've handed your self-worth to strangers. That's the cost, and it's brutal, because it looks innocent. It doesn't scream. It whispers. It hides under good intentions. It sounds like, I just want to be understood. But underneath, it's fear. The fear of being alone, the fear of being wrong, the fear of being invisible, and fear always demands payment. That's the truth. That's the trap. The price. You pay. When you chase validation, you lose three things. You lose time. You delay action, waiting for approval. You hesitate. You overthink. You rewrite, re-edit, replan, trying to please ghosts who don't even care. That's lost time you never get back. You lose authenticity. You start bending who you are to fit what others expect. You change your tone, your dreams, your personality, all to stay acceptable. And every compromise chips away at your identity until you don't recognize yourself. You lose peace, because when your worth depends on other people, your peace will always be at risk. One negative comment, and your confidence collapses. One moment of silence, and you start questioning everything. That's the cost, and it's not small. You might not pay in dollars, but you pay in self-respect. You pay in clarity, you pay in freedom. That's the tax of needing to be liked. That's the toll of living for approval. You think you're chasing love, but you're actually running from yourself. Why we seek it? Here's the truth. You learned to crave validation. As a child, approval equaled safety. Do the right thing, say the right words, act the right way, and you were rewarded. That's how society trains you. But what kept you safe as a child will keep you stuck as an adult. You can't lead your life with a child's wiring. You can't build greatness with the need to be liked, because every bold decision, every real breakthrough, every transformation starts with disapproval. People mocked every innovator before they followed them. They doubted every leader before they admired them. You want to lead? You want to grow? Then you must learn to be misunderstood. You must learn to stand alone. You have a choice: validation or vision. That's the key, the illusion of support. Let's destroy another lie. You keep waiting for people to support you, to cheer you, to believe in you. But listen, they won't. Not at first. Not until you've proven it. Not until it's safe to believe in you. Because people don't see your potential. They see your pattern. And if your pattern has been hesitation, fear, or inconsistency, they won't take you seriously. So stop waiting for support. Stop needing applause. Stop expecting validation. You don't need them to believe. You need to become undeniable. That's the real strategy. You don't convince people. You outgrow them. You don't explain your vision. You execute it. You don't chase validation. You create results. You have a choice. That's the key. Reclaiming power. So how do you stop? How do you break the addiction to validation? You replace it with self-accountability. You replace it with discipline. You replace it with truth. Start by defining your own scoreboard. What matters to you? What are you measuring? If your metric is approval, you'll always feel like you're losing. If your metric is discipline, you'll always be winning. Because discipline doesn't need likes, it doesn't need permission, it only needs consistency. Every time you act without validation, you reclaim a piece of your power. Every time you move in silence, you rebuild trust with yourself. Every time you do it because it's right, not because it's recognized, you evolve. That's how freedom is built, one decision at a time. You don't fix the craving overnight, but you starve it by action. You feed your confidence by execution. That's the medicine. That's the cure. When you no longer need validation, something powerful happens. When you stop needing validation, you become untouchable. People can misunderstand you, and you'll keep going. They can mock you, and you'll stay calm. They can ignore you, and you'll still show up. That's freedom. That's maturity. Because when you stop needing validation, you start attracting respect. People trust the one who doesn't flinch. They follow the one who doesn't beg. They admire the one who moves without applause. The strongest presence in the room is the one that doesn't need to prove it. You want peace? Detach from praise. Detach from approval. Detach from recognition. You don't need their permission. You just need your purpose. That's the shift. That's the transformation. The cost of staying the same. Let's get honest. If you keep chasing validation, here's what happens. You'll get tired. You'll burn out. You'll resent the very people you tried to please, because no amount of validation will ever feel like enough. It's a bottomless pit. The moment you get approval, you'll need more. And when it doesn't come, you'll start doubting your worth. You'll mistake silence for rejection. You'll start performing harder, louder, faker. That's the slow death of authenticity. That's the silent cost you're paying. Every single day you choose to seek validation instead of truth. You have a choice. Keep chasing approval or start building peace. It's not about being liked. It's about being real. It's not about applause. It's about alignment. That's the key. The silent cost of validation is your power, your time, your peace, your truth. You can't buy freedom and validation at the same time. You must choose. Now you know what it costs to seek approval. It's time to learn what it pays to stay consistent. Because validation fades, but consistency compounds. You've broken the chains of approval. Chapter 6. The Power of Quiet Confidence. Confidence. You've been told it's loud, you've been told it's bold, you've been told it's the person talking the most, posting the most, showing the most. But that's not real confidence, that's noise. Real confidence is quiet. Real confidence doesn't announce itself. It proves itself. It doesn't need validation. It doesn't seek attention. It just is. You see, loud confidence says, "Look at me." Quiet confidence says, "I know who I am." And that's the power you've been missing. You have a choice. Chase the illusion or build the substance. That's the key. Loud versus quiet confidence. Let's start here. Loud confidence is performance. Quiet confidence is mastery. Loud confidence is ego. Quiet confidence is evidence. Anyone can look confident when they're being cheered. Real confidence is who you are when no one's watching. Loud confidence collapses when criticized. Quiet confidence stays still because it's rooted, not rented. That's the difference. Loud confidence feeds on attention. Quiet confidence feeds on discipline. It's not about saying, "I believe in myself." It's about doing what you said you'd do, again and again, until belief becomes your default. That's the key. Because confidence isn't built by words, it's built by proof. And proof only comes from consistency. You don't talk yourself into confidence. You earn it through repetition. You earn it through showing up. You earn it through doing what others quit on. That's quiet confidence. That's real power. Why quiet confidence wins? Here's what most people don't understand. The louder someone needs to prove they're confident, the more fragile they are inside. They brag, they boast, they overcompensate. Because deep down, they don't feel powerful. They're trying to convince themselves. But quiet confidence, it's unshakable. It doesn't rush to defend itself. It doesn't need to explain. It doesn't flinch. Because it knows who it is. It's grounded in truth, not opinion. That's the strength you want. Not the kind that flashes, the kind that endures. Quiet confidence wins because it's stable. It doesn't crumble under pressure. It doesn't change with the weather. That's the secret of calm power. The person who can stay silent, composed, certain, when everyone else is reacting, that person always leads. You don't need to shout to be powerful. You just need to stop being moved by noise. You have a choice. React or remain. That's the key. The source of quiet confidence. Quiet confidence doesn't come from personality. It comes from proof. Proof that you've done the work. Proof that you've overcome before. Proof that you can rely on yourself when it matters. Confidence comes from competence. It's not about hype. It's about habits. Every time you show up on the hard days, you add a brick. Every time you keep your word, you add another. Every time you finish what you start, the foundation gets stronger. That's how quiet confidence is built. Slowly, silently, deliberately. It's not built in a weekend. It's built in years of discipline, years of focus, years of being consistent when no one's watching. That's why it's powerful, because it's real. Fake confidence can't survive silence. Quiet confidence thrives in it. How to develop quiet confidence. Let's get practical. Here's how you build it, step by step. Stop explaining yourself. Confident people don't justify every decision. They move with intention. You don't owe everyone a reason. You owe yourself results. Keep your promises, especially the small ones. Every time you do what you said you'd do, your brain learns, I can trust myself. That's how internal trust is built. That's how confidence compounds. Stay calm in conflict. Quiet confidence is revealed when others lose control. When you stay composed, you prove to yourself and everyone else that you lead yourself first. Detach from outcomes. You can't control results. You can only control effort. Quiet confidence focuses on execution, not approval. Speak less. Execute more. Loud people talk about goals. Quiet people build them. Stop narrating your dreams. Start embodying them. That's the process. That's the practice. Every time you choose discipline over noise, your confidence gets quieter and stronger. That's the paradox. The more you know yourself, the less you need to prove it. The psychology behind it. Here's the psychology. Quiet confidence is grounded in self-trust. When you don't trust yourself, you seek control through noise, attention, validation. When you do trust yourself, you can release control because you know you'll handle whatever comes. That's why quiet confidence looks calm. It's not that you have fewer problems. It's that you know you can solve them. Confidence is not the absence of fear. It's the decision to move anyway. You have a choice. Freeze in doubt or act in discipline. That's the key. When you truly grasp this, you stop comparing. You stop competing for attention. You stop trying to look confident because you are. Signs you're gaining quiet confidence. You'll notice changes. You'll talk less. You'll listen more. You'll care less about being right and more about being effective. You won't need to prove yourself in every conversation. You won't rush to correct people's opinions of you. You'll realize their misunderstanding doesn't threaten your truth. That's freedom. That's control. You'll stop chasing validation because your validation will come from your actions. You'll stop explaining because your consistency will speak louder. And that's when people will notice. Not because you demanded attention, but because your silence commands respect. That's the shift. That's quiet power. The discipline behind confidence. Don't confuse calm with weakness. Quiet confidence isn't passive. It's powerful restraint. It's the discipline to hold your energy, the maturity to choose silence, the strength to be still while others seek noise. It's not about being emotionless. It's about emotional control. It's not about being perfect. It's about being prepared. Quiet confidence is the byproduct of discipline, and discipline is a choice. You have a choice. complain or commit, react or respond, perform or prepare. That's the key. Every day you stay disciplined, your silence becomes louder. Every day you honor your word, your confidence grows quieter, but heavier, because true power doesn't announce itself. It arrives. The transformation. So here's the truth. You don't need to become confident. You just need to stop doing the things that kill confidence. Stop over-explaining, stop overthinking, stop needing attention, stop comparing your journey, do the work. Keep your word, show up. That's confidence. That's the quiet kind, the kind that never fades. You don't need their permission. You don't need their applause. You just need your consistency. That's the foundation, that's the power. Quiet confidence isn't about being louder than others. It's about being louder inside than the world is outside. You've built that strength. Now it's time to use it. Because confidence without focus becomes noise again, and the next step of mastery is energy control. Knowing where your mind, time, and attention go. You've built internal certainty. Chapter 7. Build your inner approval system. You've been trained to seek approval. From your parents, from your friends, from society, from people who don't even know who they are. But here's the truth. As long as your worth depends on their validation, you'll always be someone else's puppet, and you can't live free when your strings are in someone else's hands. That's why this chapter matters, because this is where freedom begins. When you build your own approval system, you have a choice. Keep waiting for permission or learn to approve of yourself. That's the key, the trap of external approval. Let's start with the trap you've been living in. Every time you post something, you wait for likes. Every time you work hard, you wait for praise. Every time you take a risk, you wait for someone to tell you it was worth it. And every time, you hand over your power. Because when your validation depends on others, so does your happiness. You become addicted to feedback, addicted to attention, addicted to applause. But applause is a drug. It feels good, and then it fades. And when it fades, you need another hit, another post, another compliment, another "you're doing great." That's not confidence. That's dependence. You don't need their permission to feel enough. You don't need their approval to know your worth. You just need your discipline to live your truth. It's not about being liked. It's about being aligned. That's the key. The psychology behind it. Here's the psychology. When you grow up being rewarded for approval, your brain wires itself for external validation. You do things for response, not for growth. But that system fails the moment you face resistance. Because growth doesn't get applause. Discipline doesn't trend. Silence doesn't get likes. That's why most people quit. They can't handle the absence of external reward. You have to rewire that. You have to build an inner approval system, one that doesn't collapse when no one's watching. When your approval comes from within, you're unshakable. You stop asking, "Do they like me?" You start asking, "Did I live up to my standard?" That's the shift. That's freedom. How to build your inner approval system. Let's get practical. Here's how you build it. Step 1. Set your own standards. Stop chasing theirs. The world's expectations are a moving target. You'll never win that game. Decide what you value. Define what success means to you. Not what your parents wanted, not what the internet celebrates. What you believe is meaningful. That's your foundation. Step 2. Create daily integrity checks. Ask yourself, did I keep my word today? Not did I impress anyone, but did I follow through? When your pride comes from integrity, no one can take it from you. You sleep in peace because your conscience is clean. That's inner approval. Step 3. Detach from applause. When people praise you, thank them, but don't depend on it. When people criticize you, learn from it, but don't live by it. Feedback is information, not identity. Use it. Don't become it. Step 4. Reward your discipline. Celebrate yourself for what you can control. Effort, focus, consistency. Not for outcome, because outcomes fluctuate. Discipline doesn't. You have a choice. Reward the noise or reward the effort. That's the key. Step 5. Build silence into your life. Silence reveals where your worth really comes from. If you can sit alone, with no likes, no comments, no validation, and still feel grounded, you've won. That's the test. That's the proof you've built your own approval system. The cost of never building it. Let's talk about what happens if you don't. If you keep chasing validation, you'll keep losing yourself. You'll live for opinions that change every week. You'll measure your worth by other people's moods. One day they'll love you, the next they'll forget you, and you'll spend your life trying to get back a feeling that was never yours to begin with. That's the silent cost of external approval. It kills your peace. It kills your authenticity. It kills your power. You can't lead when you're addicted to being liked. You can't grow when you're afraid of disapproval. You have a choice. Be liked for who you're not, or respected for who you are. That's the key. The strength of inner approval. When your approval comes from within, you stop competing. You stop comparing. You stop performing. You become grounded, calm, certain. Not because you think you're perfect, but because you know you're progressing. That's confidence. That's inner approval. It's not arrogance. It's self-trust. It's not pride. It's peace. You don't chase validation, you attract respect. You don't need applause. Your results speak for you. That's how powerful you become when your approval system is internal. No one can cancel that. No one can manipulate that. No one can take that away, because it wasn't given to you and you built it. The discipline of detachment. Inner approval requires discipline. You'll have moments when you crave recognition, when you want someone to notice. That's normal. But that's where the training happens. You feel the urge, and you choose not to act on it. You post without caring about likes. You work without needing credit. You give without expecting praise. That's mastery. You have a choice. React to the craving or rise above it. That's the key. Each time you resist the urge to seek approval, you strengthen your self-trust. Each time you do what's right instead of what's popular, you reinforce your freedom. That's how you win. That's how you grow unshakable. The real-world practice. Let's make this simple. Here's what you start doing tomorrow. Audit your motivation. Before any action, ask, am I doing this for me or for them? Practice internal celebration. After completing something hard, take a deep breath and say, I did that. No one else needs to know. Set private goals. Not everything needs to be announced. Build in silence, reveal through results, stop explaining. If it aligns with your values, that's enough. Detach from reaction. Praise or hate, stay steady. Neither defines you. Do this for 30 days. And you'll feel it. A shift from needing approval to owning your worth. That's inner power. The transformation. When you build your inner approval system, you stop asking for permission to live. You stop waiting for validation to start. You stop needing the world to clap before you move. You move anyway, you build anyway, you believe anyway, because your worth is no longer rented, it's owned. You have a choice. Keep chasing attention or build internal peace. That's the key. You don't need to be seen to be valuable. You don't need to be approved to be worthy. You just need to live by your own standard, with consistency and integrity. That's freedom. That's leadership. That's confidence. You've built your inner approval system. Now your foundation is yours and not theirs. You've stopped chasing, you've started leading. But building confidence isn't enough, because the world will test it. It will throw distractions, noise, and energy drainers your way. The next step is protection, not of your image, but of your focus. You've earned inner peace. Chapter 8. Stop explaining yourself. There comes a point in your growth when you realize you owe no one an explanation. Not for your goals, not for your standards, not for the person you're becoming. Every time you explain yourself, you hand out pieces of your power. You invite judgment. You invite permission. You invite opinions that don't belong in your path. That stops here. This chapter is about reclaiming your focus, your energy, and your self-respect. It's about understanding one powerful truth. You don't need to explain yourself to be understood. You just need to live your truth with discipline. You have a choice. Keep defending your path or start walking it in silence. That's the key. The illusion of justification. Let's start with the illusion. The idea that explaining yourself wins understanding. It doesn't. When you explain yourself, you assume others have the right to approve or disapprove of your choices. You put them in the position of judge, and you put yourself on trial. But you're not on trial. You're on a mission. You don't owe an explanation for setting boundaries. You don't owe an explanation for saying no. You don't owe an explanation for choosing peace over chaos or solitude over company. Explaining yourself is often a disguised plea for validation, and the more you explain, the less you trust yourself. Stop doing that. Stop giving people a manual to understand your worth. They won't read it anyway. You have a choice. You can spend your energy convincing, or you can spend it becoming. That's the key. Why you feel the need to explain. Let's get honest. The urge to explain comes from fear. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of rejection. Fear of being seen as selfish or cold. But listen, being misunderstood is part of growth. When you rise, you change. And when you change, people who stay the same won't get it. That's not your problem to fix. When you start walking a different path of discipline, silence, focus, people who are addicted to noise will question you. They'll say you've changed. They'll say you've become distant. They'll say you're not the same anymore. Good. You're not supposed to be. Growth demands separation, and separation requires strength, the strength to stop explaining, because every explanation is an anchor. It keeps you tied to old perceptions, old expectations, old versions of yourself. You don't owe anyone the old you, that's the key. The psychology of silence. Silence isn't weakness, it's power. When you stop explaining, you create mystery, you create respect, you create presence. People listen more when you speak less. Explaining yourself over and over doesn't make you clear. It makes you desperate to be understood. And desperation kills authority. Leaders don't explain their every move. They make moves that speak for them. When you stop justifying, you shift from defense to direction. You stop reacting and start creating. Silence says, I know who I am. Explanation says, please see me how I want to be seen. You have a choice. Be seen or be solid. That's the key. How to practice the power of non-explanation. Let's turn this mindset into practice. Say less, mean more. You don't have to fill every silence. If someone questions your decision, respond with calm clarity. That's what I decided. You don't owe the why. You don't owe the story. Your decision stands on its own. Stand by your boundaries. When you set limits, people will push back. They'll want to know why. You don't need to justify protecting your peace. You can say, that doesn't work for me, that's it. You're not rude, you're resolved. Let your results explain you. You don't need to announce what you're working on. You don't need to argue about your vision. Work in silence. Let success make the noise. Results remove the need for explanation. Practice detachment. When people misunderstand you, let them. When they gossip, stay calm. You don't control their narrative. You control your integrity, and that's enough. The freedom of non-explanation. The moment you stop explaining yourself, you start breathing again. You stop walking on eggshells. You stop performing for understanding. You start living with conviction. Freedom begins when your energy stops leaking into unnecessary conversations. You don't have to defend what's pure. You don't have to justify what's true. Your peace explains enough. Your discipline explains enough. Your consistency explains enough. You don't need to prove your worth when you live with purpose. You just need to keep showing up like silently, consistently, powerfully. That's freedom. That's confidence. That's leadership. You have a choice. Keep talking about what you'll do or quietly become it. That's the key, when to speak and when not. To this isn't about arrogance, it's about alignment. There's a time to speak and a time to stay silent. Speak when it adds value. Speak when it teaches. Speak when it builds. But don't explain when it's about convincing someone who's already made up their mind. You'll never get peace from people committed to misunderstanding you. Don't explain when it's about proving your worth. You're not a salesman of your own soul. Don't explain when your intuition already said no. Trust your own no without needing it to be validated. You have a choice. Talk for approval or act from alignment. That's the key. Real-world application. Here's how to start applying this today. When questioned, say what's necessary, not what's emotional. When judged, breathe, don't defend. Let your silence say, I'm not available for that. When misunderstood, remember, time reveals truth. Stay steady. When tempted to explain, pause. Ask, am I explaining to share or to seek approval? If it's the latter, stop. You don't owe everyone access to your reasoning. You owe yourself peace of mind, and peace grows where explanation ends. The shift in identity. When you stop explaining, something powerful happens. People may call you distant. They may call you cold. They may say you've changed. Let them talk. You'll notice your circle gets smaller, but your peace gets bigger. You lose noise, but gain clarity. You stop chasing understanding and start embodying strength. Because explaining is what the uncertain do. Owning is what the grounded do. You've worked too hard to build inner confidence just to give it away through over-explanation. You don't need to be loud. You don't need to be understood. You just need to be real. That's discipline, that's maturity, that's freedom. Closing power message. So from now on, before you explain yourself, pause. Ask yourself, am I seeking connection or am I seeking permission? If it's permission, stop. You don't need it. You already know your truth. You don't owe an explanation for your boundaries. You don't owe an explanation for your silence. You don't owe an explanation for living by your values. You owe yourself your focus. You owe yourself your discipline. You owe yourself your peace. You have a choice. Talk for approval or live for truth. That's the key. Silence isn't weakness. It's mastery, and mastery speaks for itself. You've stopped explaining yourself. Now, your energy is contained. Your direction is clear. Your voice is disciplined. But there's one more test, not of silence, but of endurance, because when the noise fades, the grind remains. And what keeps you moving isn't validation. It's consistency. You've reclaimed your voice. Chapter 9. How to stay unbothered in a loud world. The world has never been louder. Everyone has an opinion. Everyone has something to say. Everyone's trying to get a reaction. And if you're not careful, you'll waste your peace trying to respond to noise that doesn't deserve your energy. Being unbothered is not indifference. It's mastery. It's emotional control in the middle of chaos. It's calm when everyone else is performing. It's silence when everyone else is shouting. You have a choice. You can keep reacting, or you can learn to rule your energy. That's the key, the chaos you live in. Let's start with the truth. This world is built to bother you. Your phone is designed to keep you emotionally triggered. Every scroll, every notification, every argument, it's bait. It wants your reaction. Because reaction equals attention, and attention equals control. You think you're choosing what to engage with, but most of the time you're being pulled into comparison, pulled into outrage, pulled into distraction. That's why people feel exhausted. Their energy's not being spent, it's being stolen. You can't find peace if you live in constant reaction. You can't build anything meaningful if you keep responding to everything meaningless. You have a choice. Let the noise lead you, or learn to lead yourself. That's the key, the power of being unbothered. Being unbothered isn't about pretending not to care. It's about knowing what's worth your care. It's selective energy. It's strategic silence. It's emotional minimalism. You stop chasing validation. You stop arguing with ignorance. You stop explaining your peace. You start protecting your mind. You start managing your focus. You start building from calm, not chaos. You don't need to react to everything. You don't need to prove your point. You don't need to join every conversation. That's not maturity, that's mastery. And mastery begins with discipline. You have a choice. React emotionally or respond intentionally. That's the key, the science behind the noise. Here's what most people don't realize. Being bothered is biological. Your brain is wired for threat detection. When you see negativity, your body prepares to fight it. Your heart rate rises. Your focus narrows. Your peace disappears. But here's the problem. In the modern world, the threats aren't physical, they're digital, they're social, they're psychological, and yet your body still reacts as if you're under attack. That's why emotional control isn't optional. It's survival. You must train your nervous system to pause before reacting. You must learn to observe without absorbing. You must practice stillness in noise, because peace isn't natural. It's trained, and that's the discipline that separates the strong from the scattered. How to train yourself to stay unbothered. Let's get practical. Here's how you master the discipline of staying unbothered. Filter your inputs. You can't have peace with constant noise. Audit what enters your mind. Unfollow chaos. Mute distractions. Silence notifications. Protect your mind like it's sacred, because it is. If you wouldn't let someone dump trash in your home, don't let them dump negativity in your head. That's the key. Practice the power of pause. Every reaction begins with a feeling. Train yourself to delay it. When something offends you, don't respond instantly. Breathe, think, ask, is this worth my energy? 90% of battles disappear when you don't engage. Reaction feeds the fire. Silence kills it. Master emotional neutrality. Not every opinion deserves your emotion. Learn to listen without taking it personally. Observe without ownership. Someone's judgment says more about their peace than your worth. Don't internalize what was never yours to carry. Replace reaction with redirection. Energy is currency. Spend it wisely. Instead of responding to nonsense, channel that energy into your goals. When they talk, you build. When they doubt, you work. When they gossip, you grow. That's the real revenge. Progress in silence. Build solitude as strength. You can't stay unbothered if you never disconnect. Schedule quiet. Detach from noise. Let silence reset your system. In solitude, your peace refills. In solitude, your priorities align. That's where your power returns. The discipline of detachment. Being unbothered requires detachment, not from life but from ego. The ego wants to win every argument. It wants to prove. It wants to be right. But wisdom doesn't argue. It observes. It sees everything, but reacts to nothing that doesn't align with purpose. You don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. You don't have to explain every decision you make. You don't have to correct every misunderstanding. Let them misjudge you. Let them talk. Let them project. You stay grounded. You stay disciplined. You stay unbothered. Because emotional control is not about pride. It's about peace. It's not about silence. It's about strength. You have a choice. Feed your ego or protect your energy. That's the key. What staying unbothered looks like in real life, it's not glamorous. It's quiet. It's deliberate. You walk away from gossip without guilt. You ignore provocation without apology. You protect your peace without permission. People won't understand it. They'll call you cold. They'll say you've changed. Good. Growth always looks cold to those who still live in chaos. Staying unbothered is not about being emotionless. It's about being emotionally stable. It's not about caring less. It's about caring wisely, because your energy is your life. And the more you give it away to nonsense, the less you have for your mission. The rewards of calm strength. When you stay unbothered, everything changes. Your focus sharpens. Your decisions get clearer. Your relationships improve. Because you stop acting from emotion and start moving from vision. People feel it. They sense your grounded energy. They can't manipulate what doesn't react. That's the real power. Unbothered energy commands respect, silently. It doesn't demand attention. It attracts it. You don't need to shout to be heard. You don't need to prove to be powerful. You just need to be still, disciplined, and certain. That's the secret of every calm leader. The real test, you'll be tested. People will try to pull you into arguments. The world will throw distractions your way. Situations will provoke your emotions. That's when you must remember, peace is a choice. You can let them drain you, or you can let them talk while you move forward. You can let the world's noise invade your focus, or you can turn down the volume and stay on your path. You have a choice. And every time you choose peace over reaction, you win. That's the discipline most people never learn. Staying calm when everything around you demands chaos. Closing message. So from now on, choose calm. Choose silence. Choose stillness. Stop giving your power to noise. Stop fighting battles that don't matter. Stop explaining your peace to people who live in chaos. You don't need their permission to stay centered. You don't need their approval to stay grounded. You just need your discipline. Because being unbothered isn't about arrogance, it's about mastery. It's not about ignoring the world. It's about refusing to let the world control your inner world. That's the key. That's the discipline. That's freedom. You've learned how to stay unbothered in a loud world, to protect your peace when everything around you demands your reaction. Now it's time to take that calm and apply it where it matters most, your consistency. Because peace without persistence fades, and discipline without repetition dies. You've mastered control. Chapter 10. Live for purpose, not approval. You were not born to please the crowd. You were born to fulfill a calling. But somewhere along the way you forgot that. You started chasing applause, you started performing instead of producing. You started living for approval instead of purpose. That's why you feel empty, because no amount of validation can fill the void that only purpose was designed to satisfy. You have a choice, to live like a performer or to live like a builder. That's the key, the trap of approval. Let's face it, approval feels good. When people like you, it hits your brain like a drug. That's not weakness, that's biology. Your brain releases dopamine every time you're validated. Every like, every compliment, every pat on the back, it feeds your ego. But here's the problem. Dopamine fades. Purpose doesn't. The crowd's approval is temporary. They'll cheer for you today and criticize you tomorrow. They'll love your highlight reel, but disappear during your struggle. So you must decide. Do you want popularity or peace? Do you want attention or alignment? Because you can't have both. The moment you start living for approval, you hand them control. They become your master. They dictate your direction. You stop asking what's right and start asking what will they like. That's how dreams die, quietly, under the weight of other people's opinions. You have a choice. Live for likes or live for legacy. That's the key, the freedom of purpose. When you live for purpose, you don't need applause. When you move with conviction, you don't need consensus. Purpose gives you power. It silences the noise. It simplifies your life. Because when you know why you're here, you stop trying to impress everyone else. You don't post to prove. You don't talk to be noticed. You act because you're called. That's the shift. That's the transformation. You go from performing to producing, from chasing attention to creating impact. You stop asking for permission to be great. You start building in silence and letting results speak. That's what purpose does. It grounds you. It replaces insecurity with clarity. It replaces pressure with peace. You don't need their permission. You just need your mission. That's the key. The cost of living for approval. But let's be clear. Approval has a price. Every time you seek validation, you lose authenticity. Every time you adjust your voice to please them, you dilute your truth. Every time you compromise your standards to fit in, you shrink your potential. It's not about being liked, it's about being real. It's not about popularity, it's about principle. Approval seeking turns warriors into followers. It turns creators into copycats. It turns visionaries into puppets. That's the silent cost. You stop living your life and start living their version of you. But here's the truth. They still won't be satisfied. No matter what you do, someone will always disapprove. So why waste your life trying to meet impossible expectations? You have a choice. To live by their applause or your alignment, that's the key. Signs you're trapped in approval. If you want to know whether you've fallen into the approval trap, listen closely. You overthink every decision. You can't say no without guilt. You fear being misunderstood. You measure your worth by reactions. You edit your truth to avoid discomfort. If that sounds familiar, it's time to reclaim your power. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your growth. You don't need to justify your boundaries. You don't need to be understood to be authentic. People who live for approval die by criticism. People who live for purpose survive both. That's the discipline, doing what's right, even when it's not celebrated. That's strength. How to rebuild a life of purpose. Let's break it down. Here's how you move from approval to purpose. 1. Define your why. What are you really here for? What matters beyond the applause? Write it down. Remind yourself daily that why becomes your compass. When opinions come, you don't need to react. You already know your direction. To 2. Build inner validation. Stop waiting for others to tell you you're good enough. Start proving it to yourself through discipline. When you keep promises to yourself, you don't crave external praise. You create internal respect. That's the real reward. 3. Practice saying no. Every yes to others that betrays your purpose is a no to yourself. Stop giving your energy to things that don't align. Say no with confidence. You're not being rude, you're being focused. Choose long-term fulfillment over short-term approval. Do the work no one sees. Stay consistent when no one claps. The quiet seasons are where purpose is built. The loud ones are where it's displayed. Build environments that reinforce your calling. Surround yourself with people who value growth, not gossip. With builders, not talkers, because energy is contagious, and approval addicts will pull you down. Choose your circle with precision. That's the key. Purpose versus performance. Here's a truth most people won't tell you. Living for purpose looks boring to the outside world. You're not chasing trends. You're not constantly posting updates. You're not seeking validation for every move. You're focused. You're grounded. You're building something real, and the world won't always understand. That's okay, because the purpose-driven don't need to be understood. They need to be effective. They know this. It's not about being seen. It's about being useful. It's not about applause. It's about impact. That's the difference between performers and producers. One needs approval. The other needs alignment. Have a choice. Which one will you be? The peace that follows purpose. When you live for purpose, peace follows, not comfort. Peace, not ease. Clarity, because you stop negotiating your worth. You stop performing for people who wouldn't clap for you if they knew what it cost. You stop chasing the temporary and start building the eternal. Purpose doesn't scream. It moves quietly, consistently, confidently. It doesn't need a stage. It builds one through persistence. You become steady, centered, unshakable. Because when you live for purpose, nothing external can break you. You're not attached to applause. You're attached to alignment. That's the key. Final truth. Here's the truth that most never learn. You can't serve two masters, purpose and approval. Approval will make you a puppet. Purpose will make you powerful. Approval fades the moment the crowd changes. Purpose lasts until your final breath, so choose wisely. Choose strength over comfort. Choose alignment over attention. Choose mission over validation. You don't need their permission. You don't need their applause. You just need your conviction and the discipline to walk it out daily. That's freedom. That's leadership. That's life lived on purpose. You've learned to live for purpose, not approval. You've learned to act from conviction, not from the crowd's noise. Now it's time to talk about the invisible force that protects everything you've built. Boundaries, because purpose without protection burns out, and strength without separation breaks down. You've chosen purpose. Stop chasing applause. Stop begging for validation. Stop shaping yourself for a world that doesn't even notice your effort. You are not here to please. You are here to progress. You are not here to fit in. You are here to rise. Let them misunderstand you. Let them misjudge you. Let them talk, because while they waste words, you build results. Quiet confidence is your new language. Discipline is your new armor. From today forward, measure yourself by effort, not opinion. You owe no explanation, no approval, no apology. The real power is being at peace when no one claps. Now go prove to yourself that you don't need to be liked to be legendary.